Welcome everyone to the Self Mastery Podcast. I am so excited and grateful to have Dr. Brenda Brummond with me, and she's here to talk about soul aligned success. And I have deep questions to ask Dr. Brenda, and I'm sure it's going to be so valuable for those of you who have your own businesses and you would like to grow your business in a way that feels really amazing to you and it feels easy and feels good, aligned with what your heart desires. So, welcome, Dr. Brenda.
Thank you so much, Satuda. Thank you for having me, and hello to all of your listeners.
So, can you share with us your personal journey to discovering your solar aligned success and what it means for you, and how spirituality plays a role in success?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I feel like what soul aligned success means to me is being able to create success in a way that feels true to you, that feels authentic, that feels so aligned with who you are, so much so that the money comes as a byproduct of being your best self, of living your truth, speaking your truth, showing up in the world in the way that is just so natural and true to who you are. So I have been on that journey basically my whole life. When I grew up as a young child, second oldest of six children in a rural community, my mom and dad were farmers. We actually grew up fairly poor. And so I really didn't understand that. I felt like I would look around and see other people really doing well around us. And I couldn't figure out why we weren't more successful. And that kind of was the very beginning of my spiritual journey. I was a super intuitive kid. So I was always asking why this, why that? My parents ended up financially not doing well on their farm. And we moved to a bigger town when I was in middle school. And so I experienced bullying for the first time. And I felt really lost and alone in a bigger school. And that was another part of my spiritual journey was like, gosh, why do girls not like me? I don't understand why I'm being bullied. What have I done wrong? And then it just continued into high school. I thought, well, I'm going to keep girls at an arm length distance because somehow maybe I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. They don't like me. And I had a boyfriend relationship in high school that developed into the person I married in college, had my daughter Kenzie a year later. And then we ended up growing up to be two different people and ended up divorcing about a year and a half after Kenzie was born. And that was really hard. So I had to stop and ask myself, why am I going through this now? Why didn't this work? Why all of the whys? And then I just kept continuing on in my journey, really wanting deeper answers. I ended up going to chiropractic school. I'm a chiropractor by trade. And I met my next husband there, but it was a really rocky, bumpy road. It was I fell in love with him before he did with me, and I was a single mom in graduate school trying to make my way. And we started a relationship later on after being best friends for a couple years, and it was rocky, and we ended up at a rock bottom ourselves, and we ended up going through addictions, and that was difficult. But still, the question through all of that was, I kept asking, now, why am I here? Why am I in this situation? And then my rock bottom was when I found out that we had actually gotten engaged to be married. And I found out that he had been cheating on me.
Mm.
And that was like, of all of the things that I was trying to figure out in my life, that was the moment, where time freezes. You remember where you're standing I actually found a voice message on his phone. I listened to a voice message of another woman messaging him, and it was terrifying. And I didn't know, it was like the culmination of, now who am I with this?
Mm.
And I thought I was really trying to lead my life down this incredible path of being a chiropractor, a doctor, and we started our own practice together. And I thought, like, this is it. This is happily ever after for me. And it was like the rug was pulled out from underneath me.
Mm.
And kind of looking back on my journey through all of that and through getting to that point where I was so raw and so vulnerable and finally willing to dig deeper spiritually into my journey, I was trying to find myself everywhere in my life where ultimately I couldn't be found, which, family dynamics, being bullied in middle school and divorce and rock bottom with addiction and being cheated on. I was putting all of my value and my self-worth, I later discovered, in everyone and everything except within my own self. And that was that frozen moment in time where I said, okay, divine, God, what universe, what am I supposed to do here? I don't understand. I don't understand what I'm missing. I'm trying so hard to be successful, so hard to be a good person. And I don't understand why this is all happening. And through my spiritual journey, which really took off after that point, my husband and I were, long story short, fast forward, we worked our way through that. We found some incredible guides and mentors and found a book called A Course in Miracles. And it was like the answer to all of the struggles that I had had. And it helped me find and begin that journey within to myself. And, prior to that, we had studied everything, my husband and I, till we could get our hands on about success and mindset and the body. We understood how to be really fit. We both competed in fitness competitions and bodybuilding, so we understood the body. Then we started to understand the mind and why people think the way they do. And, we created a really successful practice together. But at some point, you have to go beyond the mind. And it feels like you're always going to be directed somewhere deeper within you.
Mm.
And for us, it was like, okay, then I had to drop into my heart and soul and ask some of these deeper questions in life and figure out who I am in this process and what am I meant to do and who am I meant to be in this world. And so, yeah, that's the beginning stages of it all. And I
Wow.
just kept learning more and more, and I started sharing it with my patients. My chiropractic patients would come in for their adjustment, and they would be going through really hard things, relationship struggles, struggles in their businesses, and struggles with their families. And I would give them some of the support that I had been learning for myself, and that made such a huge difference. And then they started requesting time apart from the adjustment where they could just sit down with me. They
Mm.
said, can I just sit down with you outside of the adjustment and, talk to you, and I pay you separately for your time? And I'm like, sure. My coaching business was being born and I didn't even realize what it was at the time. Um, and then, yeah, I did that for a number of years before I realized, gosh, I love this coaching and the mindset and the spiritual work so much
Mm.
that I want to shift my careers and move into coaching. And so I did that after 20 years of practicing as a chiropractor. And now I've been coaching for 18 years.
Mm. That's amazing, and it's a beautiful story, even though it's so painful. I can only imagine, at the time how it felt, and you asked the questions, why, and I think now maybe you look back and see that's why, because you can help other people who are going through the same thing. So,
Yes,
so it's like
exactly.
this is why. If you didn't go through those things, how could you possibly help somebody else that is struggling right now? So your clients are probably you, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it's just kind of like being the person who you needed at the time.
Exactly. That is so true. I am so grateful now that I can, I look at all the failures. I failed earlier in my career. I felt like financially, I failed, with addiction. I felt like I failed in a marriage. I've gone through a miscarriage. I feel like that was really difficult. And, you know, feeling alone when you're being bullied and
Mm.
growing up poor, and my parents actually had issues with alcohol too, that made me see what that felt like. And so I'm so grateful for having walked through all of those journeys. At the time, you're right, it was so horrible, but now I feel like it brings such substance to all of the work that I do. And I can see where people are coming from so much more.
Yeah. Yeah, and you kind of become so much more intuitive when someone talks about something, you know exactly what they're struggling with on a deeper level, and you can help them and support them so much quicker and easier. So that's such an amazing, inspiring story, and I'm so grateful for having this conversation and, you know, sharing this with other women who can listen to this and be like, well, I'm here and I want this. I desire something more, and it's possible. Um,
Yeah.
so it's really important for us to see what's possible, and then we can actually go for it and do the work to achieve that. So how do you advise women to tap into their spirituality and personal power to create success that's aligned with their soul purpose?
Yeah, that's another great deep question. And I feel like honestly, the universe is always helping them do that at all times. They can look around them in their lives and in their world right now and say, where are my struggles? Where do I feel lost? Where do I feel alone? Is it in my finances? Is it in my relationship? Is it in who I am as a person? And I feel like I'm have a big question mark when I show up in different places and different with different people in my life. Like I feel like I'm a different person with this person in my family, but I feel like over here I'm a different person with my friends, or I feel like I'm different with my children. I feel like if you just look around at your struggles and your problems,
Hmm.
those are invitations to have us stop and take a look and ask why again, why am I struggling with this part of my life? And in that question, that's where the work begins. That's where it's like, okay, at the very least, I always tell people to grab a pen and paper and sit down and write out the struggles that you have in your life.
Hmm.
Ask yourself why, almost from a point of view of, if I was the director of the movie, of the story of my life, why would I want to be going through this? What would I want to learn? What would I want to understand at a deeper level? And I feel like naturally, when we as women tap into our heart and soul and that divine intuition, we would understand. We would start to get messages. We would start to get clues. And you can do so much of that work just sitting down with your journal. It takes definitely patience. It takes some resilience, because most of us are not trained to sit with what our fears are or where our problems are. Most of the time, we want to run away from those. And it doesn't feel good to ask those questions sometimes. But sitting down and having that courage is such a beautiful gift to yourself.
Hmm.
And through that process, find all of the answers that you can. And then if you need support, that's where it's like, if you look around in the world right now, we're surrounded by such incredible coaches, mentors, guides, powerful women that are really doing something extraordinary, where they look at their lives from a different perspective. And it's doesn't have to be just all about the money, and it doesn't have to be just all about our home life.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly and totally believe that all is given to all,
Mm-hmm.
and that I am no more special than anyone else. I am no more holy than anyone else, and no one else is more than I. That we have this equal opportunity to really dig deep and really ask ourselves all of these big questions to show up in a way that is what our soul is calling us to do.
Mm. Yes. You mentioned that we can really listen to our guidance, and I think a lot of women, just like me, and before a lot, I used to struggle with uh, trusting my soul, trusting my guidance. So I know you do have a free material on soul versus ego, a soul versus ego
Mm.
guide, which you talk about the 6 powerful ways to know. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? And of course, I'll link the link underneath so everybody can check it out.
Yes. Yeah, that has come out of my coaching practice just in the last couple years, actually, where when I was thinking about what gift I could offer people who wanted some of this deeper support, the question I get asked more than anything else, it seems like, is how do I tell if the voice I'm hearing inside me or feeling inside me is my soul actually trying to guide me, or if it's the ego trying to trick me and
Mm,
trying to send me on another wild goose chase or trying to derail me.
yeah.
So I really sat down with that. And, it's interesting when you sit down with a client, my intuitive sense, as I know you know this very well too, Satuda, it will help us anchor and go right into where we feel like we can help them find that answer right there in the moment.
Mhm.
But when you're not right in front of someone who can guide you to that directly, then you have to ask yourself a series of questions too. And I love that guide because, again, if you're willing to be patient, you're
Mhm.
willing to be kind and generous to yourself, to stop and ask yourself those questions in that guide, you will be able to get better and better and more in tune and more aligned with what that inner voice is for you.
Mhm.
And I'm still practicing that. I feel like all of us, if we're here in this world at this moment, we're still all on this journey and we're still all figuring this out. But we all need, I'm a big fan of shortcuts, or how can I, quantum leap somewhere or get somewhere a little more quickly. And so, yeah, I love helping women get more in tune because I am a firm believer too that all of our answers are right here within ourselves.
Mhm.
And everything else, whether it's a coach, a guide, a teacher, a book, a great seminar, a great workshop, a retreat, they're all just guideposts, signs, sharing and holding little clues up to tell us that what we're looking for is truly within ourselves.
Yes, that's so important for us to know and understand, and I'm sure it's going to be so valuable to so many women, and I can't wait to have a look at it myself as well.
Mhm.
Okay, so what daily practices or rituals do you recommend for staying grounded in your spiritual path while pursuing business success?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with business success. I feel like that's another area where we women in business sometimes will feel guilty because we can be so excited about creating a crazy, abundant, full life. And we feel guilty making a lot of money or wanting to make a lot of money. And
Mm,
so I feel like that in and of itself is another spiritual journey for us to allow ourselves to have full permission to be as abundant as much as our soul is willing to offer us, which I feel like the soul is unlimited. The
mm,
only rate limiting step, the common denominator in our success, is always ourselves.
mhm,
It's always our limited beliefs. It's always some sort of stuck idea that we have about what we believe about ourselves or what we believe to be true. And so spiritual practices to me are always, how can I get Brenda more and more and more out of the way? So what is divine is meant to just flow through me.
mhm,
And what's interesting about that, I just had a client call yesterday that we were talking about the same exact thing. And she was talking about her spiritual journey and business and how she said, why does it feel like it gets so uncomfortable at times?
mm,
And I said, it is because it's like the old you or the old versions of you have to sort of constantly die off.
mm,
And those little deaths of who you thought you were, even, let's say you're at a certain level of business success. Maybe you're at 6 figures right now and you want to get to multiple 6 figures. The person you were that got you to 6 figures is a part of who you are, but
mm,
there are some parts of you in that need to be let go of, that need to be surrendered, that need to be shifted over. into the next level you that's trying to come through. And so practices to me are everything. This world is set up to keep us so distracted and so shiny object syndrome. I'm so guilty of that myself. You look around and it's, with me at home, I'm a mom of 5 kids, and I run 2 businesses, and there's always something that wants your attention. And sometimes it's worthwhile and you need to offer your attention, and other times it's not. And so if you don't have a practice, a daily spiritual practice to come back to, you
Mhm.
kind of feel like you're a rag doll being thrown around in this crazy world. And so I start my morning every morning with a meditation and a lesson from A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles is a book that I found that just burns right through all of the illusions or what's not ultimately real in this world, and takes you right back to the doorstep of your soul and right to who you are as that divine spiritual being having this human experience. And so I open my Course in Miracles. In the book, they have one daily lesson for each day of the year. And so I read that lesson and I sort of allow the lesson to do me, meaning try to just shut my mind off and just repeat the lesson and allow it to sort of work inside my cells, inside my soul, without me doing or trying to figure it out or to think through it with my brain, which is so limited. And then I just go into quiet. I go into silence, and I either have no sound, or I'm also a huge fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. And
Mm.
so I will listen to one of his meditations. And the goal with that meditation is to get you to no body, no one, no time, nowhere. And you literally escape all the duties, all the expectations of this world. And you get to sit in that pure present moment state. And all of my best business ideas,
Mm.
all of my best, breakthroughs in my own personal journey get to come through that space. And, for really busy women in business, I always say, how often do you find a time in the day where no one needs anything from you?
Mm.
And you don't need anything from anyone else. You don't need money. You don't need food. You don't need water. You don't need attention in that space. And it's like you get to just ultimately be the real, full, authentic you
Mm.
without limitations. And I feel like that recharges my battery for the day. It gets my body, mind, and soul in alignment. And it just sort of resets me and anchors me into that bigger, higher truth
Mhm.
and what I understand of the who I am in this world, which is a spiritual being having this wild, crazy human experience. And then I am more powered for the rest of my day. So I do that in the morning. In the evening, I also do a meditation before bed. And then throughout the day, I am a big fan of reprogramming our subconscious mind.
Mm.
So I love listening to some of my favorite spiritual teachers when I'm in the car running kids around, or running kids to school or running errands. I love just having some of my favorite mentors playing, and that way I feel like I'm just surrounded by goodness and surrounded by wisdom, and also taking all of it with a grain of salt. I love helping women see that we're this hot, messy human, but yet we're also this incredible, beautiful, divine spiritual being. And depending upon where you catch me, I might be in my hot, messy humanness, or I might be in that divinity, which I love. But it's, you have to give yourself permission to be both, and to just, we're all just trying to figure ourself and our way through this world.
Yeah, I love that. I love the practices that you have, and I have similar practices, and I've had it for years now. It's just when I had my baby 6 months ago, I kind of my my practices went out the window.
You sure?
I'm still trying to do as much as I can, and I try to do, my meditation, but it doesn't happen daily. It just doesn't happen. But
Sure.
I think what's helped me is, instead of kind of, because I've been there too, worrying about, oh, I haven't done my meditation, I haven't done my journaling today, I haven't done this. I try to just put myself in the present moment and be with my baby. And I just say to myself, this is my meditation right now. Just being with you, with my life, with my creation, a human being that I've created. This is my meditation, and I try to live in that space for as long as I can. And I think that's something that's really, really helped me. Um, uh, Kind of, it's helped me, um, with kind of missing my daily routine.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah, that's a beautiful practice. I used to do the same with my children.
yeah,
I used to sit with them, and sometimes I would meditate with them sleeping on me. But
yeah.
other times, it's kind of like they say how the dramatic effect that pets have on us, and it calms our nervous system, and our blood pressure lowers and our heart rate lowers and all of that. And oh my goodness, babies to me are the ultimate like reset. It's permission to forget everything else in this world, and like what a beautiful miracle that is, and that our bodies can create that. I used to just sit in awe and stare at my babies forever, and it
Yeah.
was probably one of the best meditation experiences I'd say I've ever had.
Yeah, it's so true. And I've noticed that, they mirror us, in terms of, if I am happy and joyful, she feels the same. And if I'm a little bit anxious or worried, she will start kind of showing that as
Yes.
well. And I just
Mhm.
know it's me. It's me. I need to come back to
Mhm.
myself, and then she'll be
Yes.
fine. So it's so interesting. It's a really, really beautiful experience. So, let's move on to the next question, which is, how can aligning with your spiritual values positively influence your decision making in business?
Yeah, that's the perfect way to reset and realign yourself. So I always look at it this way when decisions are coming at me of, should I do this? Should I, one of the programs I've created is the School of Self-Worth. And I think, okay, am I ready to launch this again? Or am I ready to offer this now to the public? Or I'm looking at investing, maybe I'm looking at investing in my own personal growth, which I did recently with a different program.
Mhm.
I allow myself to kind of fall back into those divine feminine principles. And immediately, I think I've just trained myself. One is to lean back.
Mhm.
I love the lean back approach. So often we're so, leaning forward, head to the grindstone, really trying to work hard in our lives to figure things out. And that's such masculine energy. And so for me, that leaning back,
Mm.
as soon as I lean back, I think, I already know this answer.
Mhm.
At some level, I already know what the answer to this question is. And then I just wait. I call it the golden space with my
Mhm.
clients. I always say, have the courage to sit in the seat of your soul
Mm.
in the question and give yourself room to just be, to feel into it. If it feels like the answer is not coming, stick with it, go deeper inside of you, and just practice being in that space with the question. And to me, if it's aligned, if it feels like it could be your next best step, even if you're a little fearful, even if you're a little, oh, I don't know.
Mm.
But do you feel like your little compass or your barometer is like a bit more in the, yes, I see what this could do for me. I see the value of what this could bring for me more than a monetary, um,
Mm.
just looking at the money, or yes, I'm feeling called to do this right now. So often I find that our brains just get in the way again. And
Mm.
so you can go back and forth, pros and cons in your brain so much. But for us women, I feel like that true value comes from deeper within your own self. And then when it's aligned, when you feel like something is aligned, you should feel space around it. And you should feel a bit of freedom.
Mm.
if you feel like you have to push, if you feel like you have to, it's like a tug of war inside of you, then
Mm,
I would say to me, that answer is no, not yet. It
mhm,
might not be a full no, but it's probably not yet or not at this time.
mhm,
And that becomes a really powerful intuitive practice, is to just keep going deeper within and asking yourself. And then I'm a huge fan of asking the universe for signs.
mm,
So if I find that, oh my goodness, here's an opportunity for me. Should I do this? Should I not? Then I say, okay, universe, I want 3 signs.
yeah.
And I have fun with it. I love angel numbers, 1111. Been seeing 444 and 333 a lot, but I'll listen to whatever's going on around me, what people are saying, what a song is saying, what my children are saying. I look for signs outside when I'm driving my car. Like, I am just like eyes wide open, like an owl looking for signs. And I feel, okay, if something's not meant to come, if there isn't a sign, then okay, that's that. So I love to kind of like play with that. It's like playing with the universe, like showing me something, and then what do I feel? What do I feel deep inside me? And again, if it's aligned, it should feel like a win-win-win. It's
Mhm,
good for me, it's good for my clients, it's good for the world, or
mhm,
it's good for me, it's good for that company I'm thinking of investing in, and it's good for the world. If in there somewhere I feel like, wow, this would be great for me, but somehow not good for this person, or, like if this would take me away from my children too much, I feel like, I have to relook at that, or maybe have a conversation with them.
mhm,
So it's interesting. I try to play with it as much as I can.
mhm.
Um, but know the answer's already in me. That helps me feel a lot better.
Yeah. And it's such an amazing tool to have as women, especially just to know what's what's good for you and for everyone else, just to kind of avoid making mistakes. I mean, it's okay to make mistakes, but just to kind of save yourself the energy and the time. It's just so one thing that I do myself, I get into meditation and I put myself in the in hypnosis, the deepest kind of space that it feels good to me. And then I ask the question, what will my life look like in 5 years if I took this course, for example?
Oh
And
God.
what if I didn't? What would be the difference? And I would see the future difference. And then I'll be like, okay, it's worth taking this course, or no, it's not really going to make a difference. So what's the point? And
Yeah.
this I can do with anything really, and it's
So good.
so interesting just to see the difference it would make in your life, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, or whether it's not really going to make a difference. And then it's so easy, it becomes easy. And I remember struggling making decisions so much before. It's just so confusing. What do I do? Asking, 1,000 times this question to myself, what do I do? And overthinking, and it's just so exhausting. So this tool to have to listen to your inner guidance is just so powerful. And again, the Soul versus Ego guide is going to be available. So, anyone listening, the link will be below, so you can check this out, and you can start your journey into understanding more about your gifts and your intuition, and listening to your heart and to your inner guidance, so you can make decisions based on your soul. Just to avoid wasting a lot of energy and time making choices.
So true.
Yes, so you also love talking about emotional intelligence. So, why is emotional intelligence so important in achieving soul line success? And how can women cultivate it in both their personal and professional lives?
So emotional intelligence to me is, another way I could term that to me is human intelligence. It's being able to respond and to move through this world and to offer a presence to everything and everyone around you in a way that feels like, how could this be me operating from my highest, best self?
Mm-hmm.
And another interesting conversation I had with one of my clients yesterday, she had a scenario where she was, and this will be a perfect example, where she was uncomfortable around this group of people. She was, where she was, and she they were talking about things that didn't make her feel good. And she's like, I didn't know what to do. Do I say something? Do I react to them? Do I respond?
Mm,
And what she ended up doing was just getting up and leaving the situation. But she said, I don't know if that was like the most emotionally intelligent thing to do. And I was frustrated because I felt like then I just left the situation. Then maybe I should have stood up for myself. Maybe I should have stood for what I believed. And I was left conflicted, and it was really hard on me, and I felt really terrible overall about the whole situation. And so she said, how do you know what to do in those types of situations? And I said, one, emotional intelligence should never ever hurt you or hurt someone else.
mm,
And so I, looking at everything she shared with me about that scenario, I said, I think you did the most emotionally intelligent thing, because if you would have reacted back
mhm,
and wanted to sort of fight back to what someone else was saying, one, were they asking for your advice, or were they asking for your input? She was actually at her husband's family's. And
mm,
so it's just to be very respectful of her husband and his family. And she wasn't being asked. And these people who live several states away from them, and so they were a guest there, and she didn't know how to respond. She knew if she did, it was going to be negative, and
mm,
she would probably be attacking them back, so
mhm,
that would have been hurtful to them, which would have been hurtful to her. And so the best response that she could come up with is to just politely remove herself from the situation and
mm,
say, I don't want to be around that energy or around that low level conversation.
mhm,
And it doesn't have to be that they're wrong and she's right, or she's right and they're wrong, or anything disrespectful towards them or her husband. It was just that didn't feel good for me in the moment, so I was going to remove myself.
mhm,
But emotional intelligence is kind of that looking for the win 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 also. But it's also saying, how can I respond in a way that feels like my ultimate goal is seeing the truth or the light in someone else, while
mm,
also honoring the light in me? And it should always provoke, or always call for the good of all.
mm,
And so it becomes really interesting. So with that, I always help women, understand we have to figure out what your triggers are. We have to figure out where you get set off, because a lot of times in those situations, we are not at our highest, most intelligent self emotionally. And so knowing how to self-regulate, knowing how to self-balance your nervous system and who you are, which again, going back to a lot of your questions about the spiritual journey, that is all part of your spiritual journey. It's, I definitely know I'm not here to strengthen that negative, false, scared ego in me, and I don't want to strengthen it in anyone else. And so, that requires me to do work to know, who am I at a deeper level, so that I'm not pulled into everybody else's situations, drama, realities that really don't align with who I am. And to
mm,
me, in business, that affects you directly with, business decisions you want to make. Do you want to get involved with that other person or that company? Do they hold values that you hold? In your personal life, the same thing. Your friends, your acquaintances, your family, a lot of times you have to just keep deciphering and asking yourself, do we align? Does this feel real and true for me? But yet you're not here to save or fix anyone else. You're here to, lovingly accept them for wherever they're at on their journey. And it becomes a really beautiful fine tuning process, I find.
mm. Yes, definitely. And I find that the more emotionally intelligent you are, the more powerful you are. People don't
Absolutely.
have power over you. Nothing really has power over you.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely. And they feel it energetically without having to even express things in words.
yeah. So, what are some ways that women can use emotional intelligence to navigate challenges or setbacks in business?
That's a really great question. When I find women so often, let's say we're a coach or we're in a business where we are looking to sign new clients, or,
Mm,
sign, a new customer up for whatever our services are that we offer. And they say no, or the deal falls through, or they don't choose us at that time. I find that that is one of the most common ways we as women can get in just this tailspin and feel like, oh, what did I do wrong? Was it my sales conversation? Did I push too hard? Was it that I asked for too much? Am I charging too much? What am I doing? I should rethink this. I should reword my sales pages. I should redo,
Yeah.
we think it's us so
Yeah.
often. We take it personally, and we take so much of that fear or rejection personally. And in business, I've noticed it's not personal, you
Mm.
know? And when I can really anchor into that, and when I see my clients really anchor into that,
Mm.
it just feels like conversations with people. It just feels like communication. It doesn't like, okay, that I see that we're not a great fit right now. Please keep me in mind if you feel like you need my support in the future. And I'm so grateful to have met you.
Mm.
And you create openings instead of closings. And it just, if we don't personalize things and take it as something's wrong with us,
Yeah.
something I did something wrong, I said something wrong, my web page is wrong, my sales page is wrong. It's not anything to do with that. Most often it's just
Mm.
whether we're an energetic match at the time. And so that's a huge stance in your emotional intelligence, is to look for ways that you can not take things personally. If you don't get invited to something, there's a million reasons why you didn't get invited. And
Mm.
it's such a beautiful gift to have the wherewithal of emotional intelligence to say, maybe the universe is protecting me from something there, and that's okay that I'm not invited to that one.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful way to see the world and to see everything. Um, I find it in my own experience, it was very hard when I had the wounds of, oh, I'm rejected, or I wasn't chosen, or I wasn't good enough. And then once I healed those, then I could see it this way. Oh, it's not me, and it's fine. They aren't ready, or we're not a good match at this point anyway. And maybe this client isn't good for me. And then I realized, oh, actually, I don't have to work with everyone too. I can choose. Not
Yes.
everybody that comes to me for sessions is going to be my ideal client, and that's okay. So then I let go of the fear of upsetting people or rejecting people, just saying that it's not, we aren't the right fit, and they would probably be better off working with someone else. And I think that was a big one
Mhm.
for me, because in the beginning, I was just like working with everyone, anyone.
Yes.
And at some point you realize, it's okay. You don't have to work with everyone. You can choose the people that really feel good working with. Which brings me
Yes.
to the next questions. How do we balance emotional sensitivity and maintaining strong boundaries in business?
I just talked to a client about this recently also. That is a fine-tuning nuance, um, part of the work that we do within our own selves, because emotional intelligence is, again, what's good for me in this moment. And it also has to be in alignment with respecting other people and other situations. And yet, at the same time, what's good for you, if it bumps up into you having to lower your standards or boundaries, then that's not in alignment with who you are. So that's a checks and balances process. So, and it's different in every situation, I would say. And that's why we can't blanket statement, this is what you do. But to me, overall, especially for women, because I am so adamant about women having standards and boundaries for themselves.
Mm.
And I think we can check intuitively within our own bodies in those moments when we think, okay, where's my emotional intelligence? And like, I'm sensitive to this situation. I'm aware of that. Can I have the wherewithal to say, okay, I'm going into this situation. Maybe it's a networking event. And what if someone doesn't say hi? Or what if I feel like I'm not finding a person to talk to? Okay, I know that maybe is a triggering situation for me.
Mm.
What if I can pre-plan in my own consciousness, in my own heart and soul, that I am going to be my own best friend in that scenario? And I'm going to walk through there knowing that from beginning to end, I am okay no matter what happens. And I build up my own sort of resilience and integrity with that relationship with myself. Like a lot of times we have fractured relationships with ourselves. And then yet at the same time, we'll know, we as women will feel a ding to our hearts, a ding
Mm,
to our soul if something wants us or is asking us to lower our standards and boundaries.
mhm.
And that right there is like, I always say it's kind of like a warning sign of like, don't go there, don't do that, stop, step back,
Yeah.
because you will pay the price ultimately if you lower what you believe to be your standards and boundaries.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I've experienced this myself as well. So it's definitely, and it's so important for women to know this and to really embody these beliefs, that it's okay and to have that confidence. Okay, so I want to ask you about the School of Self-Worth. And so you have the School of Self-Worth one-to-one coaching available, and also a retreat coming in November 13th
Mhm.
to 15th, a Divine Feminine retreat in business for women. So can you just talk a little bit about each? And then, of course, I will link the link for each one.
Yes. So I feel like the School of Self Worth has been a beautiful creation of a program that came through all of my meditations and downloads over a period of time. That, if I am understanding correctly, that the divine is telling all of us women, excuse me, that all is given to all, and
Mm-hmm.
that everyone has equal abilities to be able to live the greatest version of the grandest vision of themselves. Then what's getting in the way? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why do you look over here and see this woman is like totally living her best life and just doing it all? And, her life looks amazing. And another woman over here is like in the struggle, and it's so hard and it's so difficult. And so, what I did with the School of Self Worth is I created this step by step process of going through the biggest barriers, the biggest blocks that we women have, that we run into, that prevents us from stepping into and owning our divine worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
And while we are fighting with ourselves, essentially, is what happens. We end up fighting with ourselves. We're taking the path of most resistance, and we're not able to step out of that and find our path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So each module in the School of Self Worth is like this unraveling, is like this awakening process to help you arrive at what I love to call the doorstep of your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And she's beautiful and she's lovely and she is whole, perfect, and complete. She doesn't need anyone to change her, to fix her, to do anything for her. She is a sovereign, self-actualized woman who is capable of anything she so desires. And so I love that program. That is kind of like the heart and soul of what it is, the work that I do. And then yes, the retreats, what I find with this Divine Feminine Luxury retreat in November, I love helping women get them out of their day-to-day routine, out of all the to-dos and all of the tasks that they think they need to do, and out of their homes and their normal environments, and bring them somewhere really beautiful and spend a couple days, working on opening themselves up to what's possible, to really shifting their biochemistry, shifting their physiology, helping them tap into the greatest potentials that are right there. Like, I so feel like women are sitting on a pile of gold.
Yeah.
Each woman is sitting on the greatest pile of gold. They just sometimes don't know how to tap into it.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about that. And then my private one-on-one coaching is just that sacred space, that sacred container where I get to open my divine intuition and feel things with clients and walk through all the resistance that they may be feeling, and just again untangling and unraveling one on one the
Mm,
ways that they're getting in their own way.
mm,
Women know inherently they're capable of so much more. They just don't see their own blind spots or what it is that's preventing them from getting there. And
yeah.
I feel like that's where we get to kind of lock arms and say, we're just here walking each other back home. And there's ways to do it together that's so much easier than us doing it all alone on our own.
Yes, definitely. That sounds so beautiful. Each container sounds really amazing to be a part of, and I think it's different options for different people. Whoever is able to attend the retreat, and if not, they can invest in themselves in the program. And if they really want to get personalized support, then they can book one-to-one sessions with yourself. That's going to be amazing, and I'll put the link for each one. And of course, they can start with the Soul versus Ego guide, which will help them tap into their intuition, and maybe the intuition will guide them to one of your programs. Whichever one feels good to them, whichever one they is their next natural step, which will be a beautiful experience. Okay, so lastly, any last messages that you have for our listeners?
I love one of the quotes from A Course in Miracles. I love all the quotes from A Course in Miracles. Um, but there is a line in A Course in Miracles that I feel like cuts right through to all of our souls, men, women, but especially for us women. And it says, it's not that you ask for too much in life, it's that you ask for far too little.
Mm, yeah. That's beautiful. And maybe this is an invitation to everyone listening to ask for more. And it's okay to ask for more. It's okay to want more. And it's available if you believe. And, there are so many women discussing this, that it's available, it's possible. And I think a lot of women just need to kind of know that it's possible, it's available, and they can then tap into all the possibilities. So that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for having this beautiful conversation, which I know that it will be activating for so many women. It's going to be an activation for them. It's an energy transmission, which will help them so much just get into a different energy and make different choices. So thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for all the work that you're doing in the world. And thank you to the listeners too.
Thank you, thank you. And thank you for everyone listening and being here with us. I'm sending you so much love, and I will speak to you very soon.